Hello, I'm Kristin. Welcome to my channel, From Chronic Fatigue to Chronic Abundance. This is my weekly live Q&A every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. I get on to answer your questions about how to live better while living with severe chronic fatigue as a symptom. Regardless of the cause of your symptoms, maybe you've been diagnosed with something like ME/CFS or lupus or fibromyalgia, or maybe you have no diagnosis yet. The tips I share here really apply to anybody living with severe chronic fatigue. So a little bit different today. I was just doing a video interview. Oh, my hair's a little crazy. And I had a special background. So here's my green screen set up. Look, it's so pro, isn't it? An actual green screen. But my background, my customized background looked really good on it because we were on Zoom, so I could do backgrounds. I just wrapped that up, didn't have time to take this down before hopping on with you guys. So here we are. Let's see. I love to see that the chat is alive and active already. Wonderful. I love having questions to answer. So much more fun for me to come on and actually answer your questions and just come up with things to talk about. Let's see, I do have a question from somebody that came in through Facebook anonymously. I'm going to be answering that as well. I want to get to some of these chat questions first, and then I will get to the Facebook question. Oh, thank you, Roxy. I never thought of as like green being my color. I actually avoid green most of the time. Hi, Pandora Tonks. Welcome. I don't recognize your name. Glad you're here. You found my channel today and you're wondering how long I've had CFS, how many relapses I had, and if I am currently CFS free. You've had it for about 7 years and it destroyed your life. Absolutely understand that. And it's nice if you hear about people who have recovered. So yes, I currently consider myself recovered. I know using the word recovered is controversial because everyone's like, well, you're just in remission. And I suppose that's just your perspective and a frame of reference, but I certainly feel recovered and live my life as if I'm recovered. So here's the thing. I am currently 35. Gosh, 10 years ago this year, oh my gosh, July 2010 was when I had my initial crash that caused my health to descend into like full-on severe chronic fatigue. I do want to point out another controversial term is calling it severe chronic fatigue. I use that term because I'm talking about the symptom, because that is a symptom of many different illnesses. And what I talk about applies to anybody living with severe chronic fatigue, whether or not they're diagnosed with ME/CFS or something like that. So that's why I use that term. So I was 25 when I first got ill. And it took about 6 months from the first time my body crashed unexpectedly to my health continuously deteriorating until I reached the point where I almost wasn't able to continue working. Okay, there was about a 6-month decline where I went from like a healthy, super high achiever, super active CrossFitter paleo girl to feeling like I was an 80-year-old. I was sleeping 14 hours a day. I had extreme brain fog, which is really hard for me emotionally because I had always identified myself as an extremely intelligent person. So not having my brain available as a tool was very difficult for me. Oh shoot, I have like tea down on my chair and I just spilled a little bit of it. It's hot. I was constantly getting sick. Like I would have back-to-back colds. I couldn't walk down the sidewalk without getting lightheaded and winded. Stairs were, of course, difficult. And after 6 months, I was at the point where I was afraid I was going to have to leave work because I physically couldn't work an office job. I was so extremely fatigued by working on a laptop all day that I was at risk for losing my income. And I'm thinking through how much detail I want to get through. I mean, it's a 10-year story. I think I'll keep it pretty high level today to get through this quicker. Since you're new, if you want to learn more of my story, you can go back through the videos. In fact, last week's video, I talked a lot more in depth about some parts of my story if you want to go back and watch that. So 6 months in, super ill. I had seen, like 6 doctors at this point, like a bunch of specialists, rheumatologists, endocrinologists, an asthma specialist. I forget all who at this point. Of course, everyone did all the blood work and said I was completely fine. There's nothing wrong with me. I even had an endocrinologist tell me to my face, looking me in my eye, that if picking up my laptop at work caused me to crash, caused me to collapse on the floor, then all I needed to do was ask my employer for a lighter laptop. His words. Insane. So I finally got some answers when I was doing my own research online, like so many of us do. And I was diagnosed with severe iodine deficiency, and then also diagnosed with autoimmune hypothyroidism. And when I received those diagnoses at 6 months in, I assumed that we had found all of my problems and I was just going to get better after treating these. And they did help a little bit. But the following year continued to be a steady decline in my health and just a regular struggle with being able to think properly and also just physically walk. I had to completely give up working out during that time, struggling to work. I even took like a long-term leave of absence during that year. And I got better during that absence. As soon as I went back to work, I crashed very hard, very quickly. And it all came to a head a year and a half into my health journey. I collapsed in the workplace in front of a table of my coworkers. And at that point, it was like the lowest point in my life. It was mortifying. And that was after being in the office for like 2 hours. I physically collapsed. And that was my low point. That was my call to say, oh my God, I can't work anymore. Like my employer was so good with me. They tried to get me to work remotely from home in my bed. And I couldn't even do that an hour a day, physically and mentally. I couldn't even sustain that. So on the ME/CFS ability scale, I was down to about a 15% at my worst. If you're familiar with that scale and you understand what that means, great. If you're not familiar with the scale, I encourage you to Google it. There's a lot of different versions out there, but they're all pretty much roughly the same. The only difference would be some are inverted. Some have like the ability down at like 0%. So like 15% is I had like 15% of my overall capabilities. Some scales are flipped and they say like, how bad is the disease? Disease is either like, 0 if you're healthy and 100%. Well, you'd be dead if it was 100%, but like, they would say that I was at 85% disabled. But it's a very interesting scale to look up, the ME/CFS ability scale. I was about a 15% at my worst. And I spent, an additional year after that. I was unemployed. I had no answers. No doctors had any help for me whatsoever until I found an online health practitioner who was a health coach who had gone through the same thing, who had healed herself. And after like researching her a little bit and like meeting with her, I really felt like she was the right person for me to work with. She gave me the initial tools that I needed to begin healing. And after meeting her and working with her, it took me over a year. It took me over a year of slowly beginning to recover before I was able to go back to work part-time. A year after that, I started back at work like 10 hours a week. And then slowly I would increase a little bit until I was working 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week. It took me maybe 6 months of ramping up my ability to work before I was able to go back to work 40 hours a week in an office, which was a huge milestone. And by that point, I had felt recovered. I was able to go back to work 40 hours a week. I was working out again, had a social life again, planning for my future. I thought everything was better. And that was when I was 28. That would be because I got sick when I was 25. It was the first year, 26. Yeah, when I was 28 is when I first recovered. I had my full life back for an entire year, and then I relapsed we still don't know why. There's still no like obvious reason why I relapsed. I just did. And the first time it took me about 6 months to relapse. I mean, the first time I got sick, it took me about 6 months to get that bad. The second time I got ill, it took more like 6 weeks for me to go from like 100 down to like 15% again. It was very sudden and very bewildering, but I was like, hey, I figured out how to get through this. I know what to do. So I was recovering from that second one much, much faster than the first because I knew what to do. And then I relapsed again. that second relapse, the third time I got sick, and that was really, really hard mentally and emotionally, no doubt. And but I was like, all right, I know what to do. Let's do this. And sure enough, I healed even faster from that last one. And since then, about 4 years ago, I have not relapsed since. I've had my full life back, and I do consider myself recovered for the past 4 years. So that's like the quick high level version of my story, and you know where I've been at for the past 4 years now. And I do these because I don't see enough people talking about what really helps people heal. A lot of people out there are looking for the silver bullet, the one thing that they need to heal. They're asking other people, what helped you? There is no one thing that is going to get you better. There is no one thing someone else did that's necessarily going to work for you. And I will tell you what, even me as one person, each time I healed, I needed different doctors, I needed different blood work, different supplements, different treatments. I'm one person and needed 3 completely different plans to heal. Now, here's the one thing that helped me every single time, and it's what I talk about and promote on this channel. It was my healing mindset. I discovered the mindset to generate hope and motivation in the face of extreme despair. You know, the right mindset is what helped me advocate for myself in the face of these doctors. It's what kept me pushing on for a better life, even though everything told me that I shouldn't have any hope for that. It was what helped me heal on purpose, even when people told me that wasn't likely possible. And it's what helps me enjoy my life more now that I'm better because of the healing mindset, and using that in my life as a well person. I'm actually a happier, more fulfilled person now than I was before I even got sick. So I'm going to cut myself off there, hop back into the chats, and let's see what's going on. Hi, Alex Games. You have a question that's kind of similar to Pandora, but it's complementary. You know, for everyone, it's different, but you're curious, how much time did it take me to heal from CFS, and in what stages could I do certain activities? So, you know, each time, like I said, each time it took me a different amount to heal, but each time I healed faster because I got better at it, because my mindset was strengthened. I knew what to focus on. I knew what to avoid. For example, I knew to avoid thinking about a magic bullet that was going to heal me. Like, you know, when I was first ill, I thought there was one thing I had to find. We found iodine deficiency. We found hypothyroidism. I thought those are my silver bullets. We just get me on iodine, get me on some thyroid medication, and everything will be better. And that was absolutely not the case. Those were the first 2 baby steps on an extremely long journey to discover everything I needed to heal, because it is going to be a lot of things. It's going to be a collection of things. So the healing mindset has us focused on the results, not how we get them, and has us focused on feeling well, even if it takes 20 different things to get there, as opposed to a magic bullet. And in what stages could I add certain activities? There's no linear progression of like, oh, I got this much better and I can do that activity, and I got that much better and I can do that activity. It's not that cut and dry. It really isn't. And I can tell you why. It's because our bodies need different amounts of energy mentally and physically to do things. So what you're able to do at your stage of recovery or your stage of illness is going to depend completely on your own body's abilities and how much energy is required for you mentally and physically to do things, versus how much energy do you have to draw upon. And like those amounts are different for everyone. Let me think of an example. I love to use examples because I feel like they clarify what I'm saying so well. An example of something that was harder for me than it is going to be for some people. Actually, okay, the first example that came to mind, Anna, I hope you don't mind this. Anna came to mind as the first example. So for Anna, it is it is relatively very easy for her to pace. If you guys have been like searching online for help with ME/CFS, you've probably come across pacing. It's the one thing like everybody recommends as a way to help get better from ME/CFS. And I completely agree with that. Pacing is absolutely essential. And in a nutshell, pacing is limiting your energy expenditure to your energy envelope. So like understanding that you have a very limited amount of energy every day that fluctuates, understanding how much energy you have in a day, and using only that much, completely avoiding crashes. And that is absolutely a helpful thing to do. Anna is really, really good at pacing to the point that she might even do it too much. She might not push her body enough. You know, we don't want to actually be resting too much. We want to be using our bodies as much as we're able while avoiding a crash. Whereas for other people like me, pacing was extremely difficult at first. It was really hard for me because I really wanted to do things. I wanted to clean. I wanted to cook. Of course, I wanted to work. I wanted to work out. And I pushed myself way too hard over and over and over and over again. It took me a very long time to get the right mindset around pacing to do it effectively. Whereas for Anna, it's a very easy thing for her to do. Do I have a better example than that? You know, I would say a big part of our experience and our level of energy each day is our mindset, because our mindset dictates how much energy we use mentally and emotionally. And the poorer our mindset, the more energy we're using to manage ourselves mentally and emotionally. So, even if two people have the same like energy envelope, the same amount of energy every day, if one person is really struggling with the heavy emotions of being ill all day, every day, they're going to spend most of their energy managing that mentally and emotionally. Whereas someone who has a healthier mindset around living with ME/CFS is going to have more energy available physically and mentally and emotionally to put into healing, researching, etc., whatever they need. So it's not such a cut and dry thing. Thinking about stages of wellness and activities that you can do. Let's see. Yeah, Pandora, absolutely. You're welcome. There is always hope. Hope is the one thing you can always generate. Maybe it's not easy and maybe it's not always obvious, but individually, we are all in control of our own hope. Pandora says, I was wondering what you thought about introducing small bits of exercise. You went from bedridden to unable to sit up on your own to being able to walk about. I get tired, but I don't know if that's due to CFS. So yeah, I think it's great to move, like I said, within your energy envelope. You want to avoid crashes. Pacing is a great way to do that, especially if you do pacing with a heart rate monitor. It's a great way to understand when you're getting close to your threshold and to keep yourself below it. Definitely don't think of exercise as like a healthy person would. Like healthy people are like, oh, I want to exercise so I can get back into shape. And they, in advance of doing exercise, they decide how much they're going to do, and then they make themselves do that. You can't do that when you're super ill. You have to decide, okay, I am going to, like, you have to approach exercise as a test, as a discovery process every single time you do it when you're still ill. Because it's about discovering, okay, how much can I do without crashing? And you're constantly monitoring your body and your energy levels and your heart rate to see how your body's responding to the activity that you're doing. And then it's important to stop the moment you feel like you might be doing too much. In fact, getting really in tune with your body, you'll be able to feel the earlier and earlier warning symptoms, and you'll be able to stop well before a crash happens, which is key. I get tired, but I don't know if that's due to CFS. So yeah, it's true. We do get deconditioned if we've been ill for a very long time. But I'll tell you what, if you're still struggling with some symptoms, it is way more important to avoid a crash than it is to worry about reconditioning our bodies. When we're healthy, when we actually heal, we can always recondition. If we push too hard and we crash, we've set back our healing journey and we've made it harder and longer for us to get better. So avoiding crashes needs to be the top priority above reconditioning until you have like full on health again until you're like able to go sprinting without worrying about it. Yeah, so that answers the second part of your question too. Yeah, make exercise about discovery, not about a decision beforehand. It's about discovering in the moment what's okay, what can you do. Hi, Nika. She's asking, how do I deal with doctors that don't know CFS? Oh, your GP is sending you back to work, even though you cannot stand up, walk for more than 10 minutes. Nika, I'm so sorry to hear this. I mean, this is one of those situations where this doctor is doing more harm than good against their credo. And it's just so freaking unfair. Like, my answer is always going to be find another doctor. I've said this before. Yes, it can take a long time and it can be really hard, and it can be hard emotionally as well as physically when we are on the hunt for a good doctor, because it takes so much to research them. It takes so much to schedule an appointment. It takes so much to get into an appointment. And so many people kind of decide in advance, like, oh, I found this doctor, they're probably going to be able to help me. I'll listen to whatever they say. When you have a poorly understood health condition like ME/CFS, or you're living with severe chronic fatigue as a symptom, you need to take a different approach. You need to have different mindset around doctors, and you need to understand that most doctors have not received the training to be able to help you. Most doctors are unable to give you the care that you need, period. So you're on a hunt for the ones that can. And that means every single doctor is basically going through like an interview process. Like, you're trying to hire the right team members to help you get better. Like, you're trying to find the people for your healing team. You are interviewing a doctor until they have proven themselves to be the right person to help you. And this person has proven, Nika, that they are not the right person to help you, because they are harming you by sending you back to work when you're still that ill. I mean, it's just not fair. It's wrong on so many levels. So you need to find someone who truly understands your symptoms, who truly understands the diagnosis you've received, and work with them. And yes, it takes time and it's hard, but it is absolutely worth the effort. It is 100% worth the effort it takes to find a doctor who understands what you're living with, and who understands the blood work that's needed, who knows how to properly interpret that blood work, who knows what to do about the issues that are shown. It's about finding the right person to work with. I wish I had a better answer, but you're not going to change your doctor's opinion. You are not going to educate your doctor on anything. There are very, very, very few doctors who are willing to be educated by their patients on anything. I mean, oh my gosh, I could talk for hours about the problems with conventional medicine and conventional doctors when they try to work with patients with severe chronic fatigue as a symptom. You're welcome, Nika. Again, really, I'm really sorry to hear that, Nika. I wish there was more I could do. Like, these situations are just so much for do no harm. All right, Alex, when progression is so slow, how do you know if the little activity you have to keep your sanity is keeping you from advancing? It comes down to crashes. Are you crashing? If you're crashing, then yes, the activity is too much. If you aren't crashing, then there's a really good chance that activity is not too much. That's really the barometer for too much versus an okay amount. And don't forget that activities can be physical. They can also be mental and also emotional activities. Like, if you've had a very emotionally heavy day, then that's eating up a lot of your energy and will leave less energy for other things. So you need to be kinder and have more compassion for yourself on days like that. Also mentally, like, it can be absolutely exhausting to try to research answers for ourselves online. And we need to understand that when we're spending a lot of time working ourselves mentally, that it is going to be taking away from our physical abilities as well when our energy is still that low. So yeah, use crashing as your barometer. You know, I would say that, you know, the most obvious crash is one where, like, you have the post-exertional malaise, number one most obvious crash. The more subtle crash can be you just continuously have a little bit less energy every day. That could obviously be something happening physically causing that. But it could also be just that you're using a little bit too much energy every day and you just need to reel it in like a little bit in that case. Always accounting for all of your energy expenditure physically, mentally, and emotionally. I would say one of the biggest surprises for me in developing the healing mindset while I was still sick was how much energy the mind really does require for thinking and for processing emotions. It's a surprising amount of energy I just wasn't even aware of when I was still well. All right, awesome. I hope there's more questions coming. Let's see, I want to get to Bob's question. Did I leave? I left my phone over there. Let me pull up Bob's. Oh, well, you guys don't know who Bob is, so I won't share his last name. I'll do better than that. Let's see. How do I get to my questions on Facebook? Inbox. Okay. Uh-oh. Oh, I know where it was. I know where it was. Okay. We're getting there, people. There we go. All right. His question. Hey, I am listening to your YouTube video about energy. Sorry to reach out to you, but I'm curious to know what you have to say about a partner or loved one that has not done well to support you. How do you grieve the loss of that person when you have a child with them, a 2-year-old child? So I got his permission to address this question on the live stream. He was going to be on if he could be, and if he can't, he'll watch it afterwards. But I wanted to share my response with everybody because I think probably multiple people could benefit from my viewpoint on this. And as always, I'm not the expert. I'm not telling you guys how things need to be. I'm not telling you what's right for your life. I'm just sharing with you a new perspective on how to live and how to think about life while you're sick. That worked for me to heal 3 separate times. That's my my qualifications, if you want to call them that. So it's always a heartbreaking process when someone we've been really close to and someone who should care for us hasn't. So many of us have the experience of living with someone or dating someone or being related to someone who has been very doubtful of what's really going on with us and has been very unsupportive of what's been happening. And, you know, some of us even have had the experience of people who tear us down for our experiences and the way we've related them to people in our lives. And grief is always going to be the grieving process. And grief is a process of accepting what is, letting go of what we thought would be in the future, and accepting our current present reality. So it's really about holding on to those memories we have of somebody in the past and preserving them in our hearts the way that we want to. Typically that involves thinking about the good times we had with somebody, but also, like, you know, it's usually healthiest if we retain an accurate picture of them. And in the case of someone who wasn't very good to you, it's okay to remember them for the way they treated you. Even if they were a quote unquote good person, if they weren't a good person to you, you don't have to remember them that way. You have permission to remember them however you had an experience with them in life. Someone's knocking at my door, but I'm going to ignore it. I don't know if you can hear that. And a big part of grief is that, you know, in our past, we had certain expectations of what the future was going to look like. We had hopes for the future that had to do with that person. You know, in Bob's case, maybe he had a hope that this person would come around and show more compassion and be more supportive. And he hoped that person would be able to meet them halfway, learn a little bit more, become more interested, just be a better partner all around. Or maybe they had hopes for a certain family style for their child that they have together. And it's about letting go, like identifying and then letting go of those expectations and hopes you had for the future, and realizing that they're just not going to be. And that there's no judgment on you for how someone else treated you. We really have to accept that as much as other people tell us we're responsible for their emotions, we're not. We can't cause any certain emotion in another person. We can do things that have a reaction, but that person is ultimately responsible for their reaction to our actions, always. And coming to terms with that and not placing blame on ourselves is a really, really big part of getting through grief. You know, many of us stay in relationships with people who aren't supportive. I've been one of those people who, because we inherently have a lack of self-worth. We don't really love ourselves enough. We don't respect ourselves enough. We don't believe that we're going to get anything better out of somebody else. So we stay with someone who's treating us poorly. You know, and in this case, you've separated. I don't know any of the circumstances behind you separating. I'm just going to go on with my thought and just preface that, like, there's a bunch of details here I don't know, so maybe this doesn't apply to you, but this is where my mind is going. That if it's hard to let go of someone who was bad to you, that's another sign that there is a lack of self-worth and self-respect there, because people who fully value themselves and know that they're lovable and worthy of all the good things in life that they want, typically don't find it too hard to grieve people who haven't been good to them. Like, letting go of toxic people and doing that well is a sign of self-worth and self-love and self-respect. So there could be some need to really dig into creating and generating more of that self-worth and self-respect and self-love, finding your own self-worth. And when we do that, it becomes easier to let go of the people who didn't value us, because we learn that life is too short, that our energy and time is not worth being spent on people who don't help and support and love us back, you know? So let me summarize what I just shared. The first thing to do is let the grieving process take its course. You know, go through those past memories. Identify your expectations and hopes for the future about this person, and let them go. Realize that none of them are going to happen. Accept that what has transpired has changed your hopes and expectations for the future. And then also spend some time reflecting on, you know, is there a little bit of need for increasing your own self-worth, self-respect, and self-love, and then figuring out how to do that work. There's a lot of resources online on how to do that. If you have questions about how to do it, I have a lot of things to recommend there, but I will save that for a time when someone asks about it. So yeah, it's definitely a heartbreaking situation, and a hard one and an unfair one, no doubt. Feel those things, feel the heavy emotions about this person and what has left you so unhappy with it. And then feel those things and acknowledge them and learn how to let them go, so that you can get on, not just for yourself, but also for the sake of your daughter. Your daughter will, or son, I guess I'm assuming it's a daughter, I'm not sure if I know, will benefit from having a happy, healthy, whole, self-respecting parent most. All right, so that is my take. Alex, how many months, years did it take for me to heal? So my total healing journey, getting ill 3 times, recovering 3 times, was a 6-year process. During that time, there was about 3.5. It was about a 6-year process. I spent about 3 years of that unable to work. And, you know, like I said, each time I recovered faster. The first time from when I initially got ill to when I was well enough to go back to work was, let's see, it was like 1, 2, it was over 3 years. The first time I got ill, it took me over 3 years to get better. And then I had my, well, is that right? I need to like write all this stuff down and just like have a cheat sheet of it in front of me. So there was that year, it was 3.5, it was 3.5 years from the first time I got ill to when I was able to work again. Like I got ill, craziness happened, health decreased. I had to leave work for a while. I slowly started getting better, went back to work. That's when I kind of consider myself recovered, like well enough to work full time again. That was 3 years. Had my health for a full year, completely healthy for a full year, relapsed again. So now we're 4 years in. So I got super ill just within 6 weeks the second time. About 7 months into that, I was going back to work part-time. I was working like 20 hours a week remotely after 7 months. No, first time it took me 3 years to heal. The second time, I was going back to work within 3 months. I'm sorry, within 7 months. And then I relapsed again at the end of that recovery, relapsed fully again, also developed IBS the third time. And then it was about like a 5-month journey from that relapse to where I could work full time again, if that makes sense. So like I said, like first time was like 3 years, second time, like I was on track at like 7 months. And then the third time it took about 5 months, faster and faster every time. Heather Hartman. Hi, Heather Hartman. Welcome. After I completely quit caring about what other people feel about me, things got better. Absolutely. And if the person wants to be a turd, they can go lie in the yard. Never heard that one before. Yeah, and I just want to say real quick, there's a difference between like not caring about other people versus caring about yourself. Like Heather, it sounds like you care about yourself. But I have seen people just disregard other people's opinions because they don't care about them and still not have self-worth and self-respect. You need that self-worth and self-respect to really reclaim full health and full vibrancy, to really enjoy your life and to actually free your energy from your emotions as much. You're going to have so much more energy left over every day if you're able to free your emotions by developing self-worth and self-respect and self-esteem. Let's see. Oh, you're welcome, Heather. Alex says, so hard when you have a kid. Yeah, he hopes Bob pulls through. Oh, that's so sweet, Alex. That's right. Take care of you first. You can take care of yourself and your kid. Absolutely. Put your own oxygen mask on first because you're going to be best equipped to help that child. Oh, there's like a dirt bike going through the city. You're going to be best equipped and most able to help your child when you have been helped. Heather, yes, most definitely. We are worth it. We are worth it. And you know what? All right, that brings me on to another topic, which is so many of us, before we get ill, tend to tie our self-worth to the things that we do. We tie our self-worth to the job that we have, the money that we make, the role that we fill as a mother or sister or wife or girlfriend. Excuse me. And whenever we get severely ill with severe chronic fatigue, we lose most of what we do. So for most people, they lose their identity and they lose their self-worth because it's not being propped up by things that they do anymore. And the really hard part about self-worth when you can't do anything is that there's no more crutches. There's no more external crutches to prop you up. You have to develop true innate self-worth and self-respect, meaning you value yourself and you realize you are worthy of love no matter what you are or aren't doing, period. Like you are, therefore you are worthy of love. And and honestly, that realization was the moment I began to develop the healing mindset. Once I realized that I did exist, there was something here, there was something worthy of love and of life, even when I couldn't work, I couldn't work out, I couldn't be an entrepreneur, I couldn't be the girlfriend I wanted to be, I couldn't be the sister or daughter I wanted to be, I couldn't be the friend I wanted to be. I was still here and I was still worthy of all the things I wanted in life. Mm. Oh, Heather, you're so sweet too. Bob, we love you. Heather says, I agree. And a lot of people measure you by what you can physically do in your job. It's true. I mean, our society really pushes this idea that our value is tied to what we are and are not able to do. And it's up to us individually to just decide that that's not true, to decide that we have worth anyway. Great questions today, guys. Really, really enjoying this conversation today. I came into it with extra energy. I came into it amped up from the interview I got to do. It's not every day I get to talk to somebody who has a similar mindset around health and wellness and success and business and stuff. And this woman I got to talk to absolutely did. She was fantastic. I enjoyed her tremendously. So this brings me to another thought, which is that when we can't do things anymore, when we can't be the person we used to be, we tend to start to feel guilty. We start thinking about all the money we're not making. We start to think about all of the people we used to interact with and how we're not able to support them anymore. We're not able to be there for them anymore. We're feeling embarrassed about how maybe our former coworkers might see us. We are struggling with having to turn down invites to big events that we want to go to, but know that we physically can't actually do. And you know, that guilt really comes down to interpersonal dynamics. We basically feel guilt in relation to other people. And it's true, we can feel guilt in relation to ourselves, but that's when we have a dichotomy of self and one part of ourself feels guilty about how we're making the other part of ourselves feel. So instead of viewing guilt as this like heavy emotion that we just have to endure, when we have hard choices in life that we can't really do anything about, I want to help people reframe guilt as purely a message. Guilt is not something that we have to live with and endure when we have no other option with how to act. Guilt is really just a message from the body saying, hey, you really care about these other people. And right now, you're really concerned that they don't know how much you care about them. Guilt is a call to express that care and concern you have for other people. And maybe you need to get creative about how to do it because you used to have a way of expressing your care for somebody that's no longer available to you. So you really need to think of new ways that work within your current energy envelope, within your current restraints, to express how you really feel to them. And when you find those new ways to express your care for people and they respond to that and they feel cared for, they feel loved, acknowledged, all those great things, what you've done is you've actually released the guilt. There's no more guilt to be felt, and you've deepened your relationships with people. It's just a win-win-win all around when we view guilt that way. It's a big part of the healing mindset is reframing our guilt. It's not like a sentence that has to be endured, but rather a call to express how we feel for other people. So how is everyone doing in lockdown life? I know that for many of us, life won't have changed a whole lot. But, you know, I've heard people reporting that they're actually feeling better during lockdown because they have less pressure on them to go out and do things. It's easier for them because they're not missing out on things. So they don't have to like worry about saying no. There's none of that anxiety or guilt that goes along with it. I mean, how's it going for you guys? How are things shaping up now that we're like, depending where you are, like 2-3 months in? Let's see. All right. Let's see. Heather says, yep, nothing's changed much, but enjoying the peace and quiet. That's great. I've been enjoying the peace and quiet too. Even though I've been busy with work, I enjoy a slower pace of life in the evenings. Alex, what should we think when we are bored in bed, staring at the back of our eyelids? Definitely a tough one. And something we've all found ourselves struggling with. This is one that's really hard to answer because this isn't a time to do. Like you're asking, what do I do when? It's really about how do I not do? How to not do? How to not think? Because even thinking in those moments is going to be exhausting. How do I accept that there's nothing to do but lie here? How do I accept that the best thing I can do for myself right now is to do nothing? Because when we can develop a relationship with doing nothing, when we can come to peace with the idea of doing nothing, that's when it stops being a struggle to do nothing. Because I tell you what, when we're struggling to do nothing, we're using up our energy. We're using up quite a bit of mental and emotional energy to do nothing when it's hard. And if we can start to do nothing in a way that's easier, that's when we're really truly helping ourselves the most. Let's see. Heather says, Alex, LOL, good question. Make up fun stories in your head. I still do that. I'm a weirdo though, Alex, LOL. Yeah, if it's a moment where you can find some joy for yourself, go for joy first. If you enjoy making up stories, absolutely do that. If you enjoy, like I think this is always a hard question for me to answer because I don't think there's like a quick, easy response to this because it's so individualized. For me, I spent a lot of time thinking about the future that I wanted. And this is why I think it's so hard for me to talk about it, because I know that for most people, thinking about the future they want while they're still ill is actually going to be very draining for them. It's going to be a very negative experience for them, and it's going to take away more of their energy than they have to spare. Because most people get really upset thinking about all the things that they can't be working towards right now. But for me, it actually energized me and made me feel better to think about what I was going to do when I got better. I didn't get caught up in what I didn't have right now. I got myself pumped by framing it as, yeah, I don't have this right now. I probably am not going to have it soon, but someday, like I just had this knowing that like, yes, I am going to figure this out. I'm going to get better no matter what. I'm not going to stop. And when I get there, this is what my life is going to be. And that really helped me. So I would say it's about finding those things you can think about that keep you feeling light, that lead to light emotions, that lead to a feeling of enjoyment. And we can't exactly know what that is for you. And it's going to take some exploration and discovery by you to discover the things that you enjoy doing, the things that leave you with more energy than they take from you. Because when we can't do anything physically, all we have is our minds and emotions. I would also recommend learning to use some of that time to meditate. I'm not going to tell anyone they should be meditating 6 hours a day if that's how much time they need to spend in bed. But the more time we can spend in a meditative state, that's actually getting our bodies into the rest and digest response in the body, the rest and digest and heal response, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. The more of our time we can spend in parasympathetic nervous system dominance, the more able our body is to heal. Because if we're not feeling good, if we're not in parasympathetic nervous system dominance, it means we're in the stress response dominance, and our bodies are literally limited in being able to heal and maintain themselves when we're in the stress response. And we can know that we're in the rest and digest and heal response because we feel good. That is when the body prioritizes the production of dopamine and serotonin. So if we're feeling good, we can know that our body at a molecular biological level is better able to heal. Oh, thank you, Heather. I appreciate that. Heather says binaural beats. You've heard that works. Meditation, hypnosis videos. Binaural beats can work, although for some people with ME/CFS or severe chronic fatigue, the auditory stimulation can be too much. I know that when I was at my most ill, too much visual stimulation and too much auditory stimulation would absolutely exhaust me. I couldn't listen to things or watch things on a screen for too long, or it would get too tiring. And binaural beats is going to be one of those things. So it really comes down to where you're at in your healing process and how well you tolerate auditory stimulation. I will say I personally use binaural beats for focus and for relaxation when I'm working sometimes. I have a membership to a website called brain.fm, and they have a whole host of different music that can help you get into different states of mind. That being said, it's very slight, and it still takes a lot of mental energy to engage in that. So I don't know that I would recommend it for someone who's still very ill. I would say if you want to try it, go ahead and try it, but go into it with an open mind, realizing it might work for you and realizing that it might not, and being okay with whatever the reality is. Yeah, hypnosis videos can help. I think personally, my take on this is that we want to be teaching ourselves how to sustain our energy without external tools. As much as possible, we want to be developing these own capabilities within ourselves. So we carry them with us at all times. We don't need a screen. We don't need a phone. We don't need the internet to call upon the tools that we need to keep ourselves well, to help our bodies heal, to support ourselves and feeling good and creating a true sense of well-being and a healthy, happy, whole life. That's always been my drive in life, is to be as self-sustaining as possible. Even though I occasionally do use tools, I really try not to rely on them, and I try to discover the skills that I need to cultivate within myself first. But you know, as always, different strokes for different folks. So we are coming up on the hour. We've got about 4 minutes left. I can definitely get in another question or two if you guys have them, and I hope that you do, because I love answering them. I'm going to use some chapsticks. My lips are getting a little dry. The chapstick I love comes in tins. I wish they put it in tubes, but they don't want to use plastic. So I really support and admire refusing to use plastic in your business, but these tubs make it a little like difficult and weird to put chapstick on. Let's see. Man, it is a beautiful day here in Philadelphia today. I'm looking at blue skies, little tiny white puffy clouds. It looks like it's maybe a little bit warm. I'm gonna check what the weather is. If it's nice, I'm gonna step outside after this for a little bit, get a little bit of sun, catch up on my emails, you know. Oh yeah, it's like 65. It's beautiful here. I'm absolutely gonna go outside for a little bit of sun. Which of course leads me to, you know, one common symptom that I don't see talked about a lot is that many people with severe chronic fatigue also have a lot of intolerance to temperature extremes. They can't get too hot, they can't get too cold. Otherwise, they get extremely exhausted and often crash. Whereas a normal healthy person, when they get too cold, they'll start to shiver, you know, their body will do things to produce more heat, but that requires a lot of energy. So instead of like being able to heat ourselves up, we just begin to feel extremely ill because our bodies don't have the energy for that. Same with when we get too hot. If like our bodies seem to have a difficult time regulating our temperature. So instead of being able to sweat out extra heat like a normal person, we just seem to feel very ill as our bodies aren't able to do that. And actually, I will say that one of the most interesting experiences of recovery that I had, this didn't happen until after my third recovery, but I noticed it. Couldn't tell you how long it had been, but I remember working out one day after being fully recovered, and I noticed this like whole like weird, almost tingly kind of sensation over my body while I was in the middle of a workout. And then I started to sweat. Like I could see and feel like sweat like on my forehead and like under my armpits, just like the very beginning of it. Never before and never since then have I felt my body begin to sweat. But the moment it happened, I realized, I was like, I haven't sweat in a very long time, have I? And that felt like a true sign of recovery, that my body was recovering the ability to regulate its temperature properly and regain the ability to sweat. Something so simple, but really significant. And definitely, I know I'm not the only one. I've seen this elsewhere. It's just not very commonly talked about thing. So it's definitely something to notice. If you tend to get really tired, if it's too hot or too cold, you've got to really make sure you have things at your disposal to help regulate your temperature manually, externally. Yeah, Alex says baths drain your energy. Yeah, me too. I wasn't able to take baths for a very long time. And it's actually something I really enjoy doing now because I couldn't for so long. I love a good hot Epsom salt bath. All right. Looks like we're up on the hour. This was a great talk. Thank you so much for everyone who showed up. And if you are watching the replay, I would love it if you said hey in the comments down below. Hope you can make it next week, same time, same place, every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. If you go back to my channel, you can see the videos upcoming for the rest of the month. I have them all scheduled in advance. There's a little set reminder button below each one. You can ask YouTube to remind you before each video comes up so you don't miss it. If you would love to stay in touch more often, I have a Facebook group for that. It's in the description of this video. After this video ends, you should be able to refresh the page. It might take a minute, and YouTube will show the description of the video down below. And in that description, there is a link to the Facebook page where you can fill out a couple questions so I know you're a real person and request access to the private closed Facebook group. As always, sending all my love and health to you. I'm Kristin. I'll see you next week. All right. Bye, guys.